Hello and welcome to the Final Straight F1 podcast with Ben and Tonda.
And today we're looking at the story of the 2024 Brazilian Grand Prix. And what the hell? What was that Sunday? Because it all happened on Sunday, basically, apart from the sprint because it was a sprint weekend, right? But we had a qualifying on Sunday for the first time in I don't know how many years. And we saw 5 red flags just in qualifying. And that insane race afterwards. I mean, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah. As you say, it has been a hectic weekend. And it is very hard to remember how it actually started, right? Because we have talked about it. We have called it. We said that the triple header with Brazil at the end must promise something very special. And yeah, Brazil delivered. For the first time since I think 2016, we had a wet race, which, last time, remember, it was also, I think, Max Verstappen's masterclass in the rain in 2016. And I think that this time it could have been pretty much the same thing. But yeah, let's just start from, as you say, qualifying. 5 red flags, many crashes. I think it was, as you say, 5 crashes, 5 cars that were pretty much out. And my God, it just felt like it was just a challenge to survive. I don't know. How did you feel about? First of all, we had the qualifying that was postponed to Sunday, and we had the sprint, right? And let's be fair, I don't think that the sprint had delivered maybe the most amount of excitement, but it had some drama still. With, for example, the McLaren switch with Piastri taking, the sprint pole, or how do you call it, the sprint P1, sprint pole, and he actually outqualified Lando Norris, who couldn't even keep up the pace with him in the sprint. He was pretty much outside the DRS whenever, Piastri kind of could have just walked away with the race, but obviously we had some team orders in place because Max Verstappen was hot on the tail of Charles Leclerc, who was fighting for his life, and he couldn't hold him back, right? So how did you feel as a Tifosi Ferrari fan who came out with double, basically back-to-back wins? So how did it feel to see Leclerc not really being able to fight?
The hopes were high. I mean, I think it was obvious that Brazil wasn't going to be that strong of a track for Ferrari as, for example, Las Vegas might be, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, the qualifying also didn't go into, in their direction, especially the main qualifying where Carlos Sainz binned it. But yeah, Max Verstappen was just unstoppable all weekend. And at the front, we kind of saw a reverse of the situation that we already saw before this year in Hungary, at the Hungaroring, right, where Lando Norris was asked to give back the position that he gained thanks to an undercut of Oscar Piastri. And I mean, they're, at the point that they were at before the Grand Prix, it really looked like it was going Lando's way. Because Red Bull were nowhere. Max was kind of starting to fall behind in terms of the points advantage. So, of course, it's very reasonable that they switched. The way they did it was, again, a bit dramatic, as you said, for whatever reason. They just can't keep it simple.
Yeah.
And Lando Norris did walk away with the sprint win. But everything changed on Sunday. Because even though he started from P17, Max Verstappen, he climbed up the order and managed to win by almost 20 seconds.
Insane. Like,
this is
unbelievable. Yeah.
Just fun fact, this is the third time anybody has managed to win from P17 on the grid. The last time this happened was in 2005 in
Kimi
Japan.
Raikkonen.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Or Kimi Raikkonen won from P17. Now Max did the same thing in the rain. Of course, the circumstances were a bit in his favor. The strategy worked out in terms of the red flags, in terms of the pit stops. But you can't deny that he went on an absolute rampage, overtaking everyone. Similarly to Lewis Hamilton in Brazil in 2021, right, where he started at the back of the field, P20 after taking the penalty, and then he just overtook everyone. And especially at the start of the Grand Prix, I mean, Max I think he even started behind Perez, right?
God.
And then,
I mean, we can't even get into Perez, right?
Yeah.
It's insane. Yeah, exactly. As you say, within a few laps, he was basically in P6, I think. He was on the tail of Leclerc once again, who had a bit of a deja vu.
Yeah, but proved to be not so easy to overtake.
Yeah, exactly.
For Max.
And funnily enough, I think Max Verstappen, when talking about Leclerc, he got on the radio saying, "Oh, come on, Charles, so many mistakes."
Yeah,
and which was kind of funny but sad at the same time. And yeah, it was, after Saturday, I think everyone, including me, we were already counting because we had, the virtual safety car. Let's not forget the drama with the virtual safety car in the sprint, right? Because we actually had a virtual safety car about, what was it, like 5 seconds after the McLaren switched. I think it was because of Nico Hulkenberg, if I remember correctly. But still, we then had the restart, right? Which was like a lap or two before we had the end of the sprint. And Verstappen was on Piastri, and he was playing a lot of games. He was trying to overtake him, and he was trying to time the virtual safety car to a perfection. But there's a big but, right? Because he got a 5-second penalty post-race, and therefore that promoted Leclerc to a sprint podium, actually. So you already had, 4 points that Norris managed to, or 3 or 4 points that Norris managed to get ahead in the championship by. And we were all thinking, right, well, this is it. This is the moment where Norris turns it around and we will have final 3 races that are going to be neck and neck for the title. Well, how wrong were we? Because, Max Verstappen, he qualified, I think, P12. He was out due to the red flag. That
also, the timing of the red flag was a bit strange, right?
Yeah, the timings of the red flag, it's... I don't know. I don't know. What is your opinion? Like, when do you think the red flag should just come out? Like, when there is an incident? Because I feel like there's just a weird situation at this moment where they are trying to let these people finish their laps, but then also by that they hinder the ones who just started it. I don't know. It just seems all strange.
I mean, I think it's just most fair to just put the red flag up as soon as they know that it will be a red flag, which just seemed like it would be. So I see where Max is coming from, where he's talking about, stewards, they let the guys in front of me finish their laps and then they put the red flag. I see where he's coming from, but I mean, at the end of the day, again, it's just down to the people making those decisions.
Which is
but
back to the stewards
also,
as well. Yeah.
But Lando Norris is, as you say, we would have thought he's gonna win, which, he qualified P1 in the end.
Yeah.
Qualified P1 despite almost not making it out of Q1.
That is very true. Yeah.
I think it was Lewis Hamilton who was knocked out. If I'm not
You unfortunately
mistaken.
are very correct with that statement, and Lewis Hamilton had a stinker, but we will get to that later.
No, but then, Lando Norris, it was almost didn't get into Q2, which would have been pretty anticlimactic, but it ended up being so anyway, because he finished, what was it, P5? P6? P6, I think.
In the race?
the race, it was P6.
I
Because George Russell was P4, Charles
think,
Leclerc was P5.
It was P6.
Because
Yeah.
upon the last restart, Charles Leclerc managed to get ahead, and Lando Norris, we saw him go off
thinking
in
differently.
the rain, thinking differently. But I mean, that's not to say that the lap that he put in for the qualifying wasn't pretty darn great. Like Lando Norris, he can drive in the rain, like he really can. But
yeah, exactly.
This
but
time
the starts let him down. I think the start this time again, it was very crucial because he was, in P1. He, after the race, was complaining about actually the P1 spot or the right side of the grid being less grippy than the one on the inside, which could be very true. But on the other hand, he let Russell get through, who, by the way, put an amazing performance as well, because qualifying on the front row of the grid when your teammate, a 7-time world champion, couldn't make it out of Q1 it's a great result, obviously. But I think that's where Norris has lost his race, because I think that had it not been for the bad start, Norris would have just basically checked out, because we know the McLaren is not bad in the rain. It's pretty good in the rain, and the qualifying proved it. And when there would have been the time of the virtual / normal safety car / later red flag, he would have had enough buffer to just pit and not lose any positions, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
And he just made it so much more work for himself and the team. So I felt like that is where the race was lost, and he couldn't ever recover. He couldn't just overtake the same way as Verstappen, as you say. After the first turn, he was already in like P10. So yeah, he was overtaking a car after car. Like in turn 1, he just sent it down the inside. He found the grip. I mean, let's be fair. I think still the Red Bull in the hands of Verstappen, in terms of the car, in the rain, I still believe it probably on that day was the fastest car. But I think that day it was driven by a driver who had the best performance that day, pretty much. So yeah, it is. I think it should be really mixed feelings for Norris, because he also was very salty. He was very salty on the post-race interview, right? Where I don't know if you've seen it, but he was saying, "No, that is not talent. Not talent at all. It's just pure luck." Yeah, and he got a lot of backlash. He got a lot of backlash.
I mean,
after it.
Not so, that's to no surprise, because of course they're championship rivals. You wouldn't expect him to say, "Oh yeah, Max is the best driver. I'm never gonna be as good as him," or something like that. But you can't just be going around and saying Max Verstappen is where he is purely because of luck.
Yeah,
because as controversial as he might be, or with his driving style is being aggressive or whatever, like he still is a great driver, which is undeniable. And as Lando Norris, you can't just go into the post-race interview. I mean, I understand there was emotion because you could have been way closer to your first championship, and now you're way further than you were at the start of the day. But still, like you can.
Yeah.
He could have let that one go.
True, but yeah, it is. I guess it's the emotions. After all, they're all human, and they have all. I think every single driver has said things. For example, Kevin Magnussen, who was missing in this race, that said, "Suck my balls, mate," to his future teammate Nico Hülkenberg. But
and now look at them. Look at them this year. Haas doing wonderfully, but now being overtaken by Alpine.
Yeah.
God damn. Alpine team, the French have somehow done it. And scored a double podium in Sao Paulo, which
insane.
I think this podium might have cured the rivalry between Ocon and Gasly. I think that they've just become best friends. Honestly,
it seemed like it.
If you saw how happy they were, like they all animosity, everything is gone now because they managed to do this for Ocon retired. It's, beautiful story, really. Netflix will be delighted.
Yeah, best friends.
But because look at Alpine, all season they've been nowhere. They've been last. They've been kind of okay. Sometimes they scored some points, but overall terrible. And now they've leapfrogged everyone, and they're in what, P6 with 49 points.
That's the jump of the season. Like this exactly just shows when there is an opportunity and you take it, you can benefit massively. Because this was a difficult race. The Alpines seem to perform fairly well in the rain, and mainly in the hands of Ocon, because he qualified in top 5, I believe, or top 10.
No, I mean
sure.
the top 5, the top 5 at the start of the race was insane to begin with. I mean, we haven't even mentioned it, but we had, George Russell, he's there pretty often, but Yuki Tsunoda, P3,
and Liam Lawson,
Esteban Ocon, Liam Lawson, they were all up there somehow.
It is.
Well, I mean, somehow
it is very funny because the both V carbs outqualified both of the Red Bulls, which is something I haven't seen quite for a bit because it doesn't usually happen. But there were some amazing performances, and we had a lot of mix-up, right? Tsunoda holding it for a long time, and then there were a lot of maybe different strategies with the pit stops, and maybe just
waiting.
Leclerc
waiting for red flag, right? Yeah. Which didn't. Yeah, going for the undercut didn't really work for Ferrari because then there was the red flag. There was a couple red flags, and traffic as well. And I mean, we haven't even mentioned the start of the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, crashes on the formation lap.
Oh man,
they happen.
I forgot about that.
You can get a mechanical failure. You can even just make a mistake. That's natural. Especially in the rain, like right in the wet. But to lose it and then be fine, that. And then to drive straight into the gravel pit and get beached is really something that only a handful of drivers can do. And unfortunately, Lance Stroll is among that bunch.
Yeah.
And he caused quite a lot of confusion. I mean, I think it was worth it. I think the delay was worth it simply for the shit show that was the restart. Because Lando Norris, just for whatever reason, decided to go again. Go for another formation lap.
Yeah,
then
that was odd.
Ocon, Lawson, and Tsunoda all followed him, so everybody else just started. And that was pretty bizarre. I mean, Verstappen was like one of the few drivers that said like, no, we're supposed to stay here. And Leclerc, I think, as well, was like, oh, we were supposed to stay here, but then they told him to go to prevent any accidents. But that was a really strange start of the Grand Prix. And I honestly thought that the reprimand, or like the punishment, would be more than a 5,000 euro fine. Beyond.
Yeah, that was a very odd thing to do because it was just so weird. It just added a little bit of weirdness into the weekend again, and more confusion because, right, you had Stroll binning it kind of twice, right? He just spun in the formation lap. He beached himself in the gravel when that was 100% avoidable. Blaming it on the car issues, maybe brakes. Who knows? We will never find out. But yeah, I mean, we also, right, I think this is a strange spot for Formula 1 as well with the regulations, because after they unintentionally restarted, let's say, the formation lap when they weren't supposed to, you had to repeat the whole procedure, right? You had to, again, just put, everyone just... It's the 10-minute procedure that just delayed it again, right? And it's so weird, because the cars are ready to race. The car that... Stroll, it was already away, but... Yeah, I guess with F1 cars, you just have a little bit of a limited start in terms of, like, you cannot start... You can do it like with a regular car, launch control for like 10 times in a row, right? So... I guess that is what it is, but I felt a little bit strange about that because it was just very confusing once again for all the fans, I guess. But it is what it is. I think people will learn from this because apparently the light signal was very different to what it was actually, what it should have been to indicate to start another formation lap, but because it was start aborted and not another formation lap added. But hey ho.
And I mean, also think about the butterfly effect of what Lando did, kind of, which was the fact that the race started 10 minutes later, which meant that the rain came at a different point in the race, and who knows, that might have been what cost him some of the positions. But
exactly.
But Lando Norris, definitely finds himself in a very difficult spot right now, though, because this was the golden opportunity to get closer to Max, and now all Max has to do is outscore him by 3 points or more to win the championship, which, I mean, that's just a bit disappointing.
Yeah.
I mean, you already mentioned it. We were hoping for a battle up until the finish, like we saw in 2021.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
anticlimactic a little bit.
Right? But
yeah.
For it to end like this, I mean, to be fair, who knows? We don't know what will happen next week, right? Where maybe Verstappen will DNF, and that will change everything again. But as of now, Verstappen looks like he's just smidge away from being a 4-time world champion.
And I must say fully deserved, because this drive just proved he is there. Like, whenever there is an opportunity, he is there, and if there is not one, he will create one. You have, even though if maybe people are not fans of Verstappen, I think you need to admire what he is doing at the moment, because I think he's one of the best, if not the best, to do it. So yeah, it's amazing, because he was creating a lot of entertainment, right? You were on the edge of the seat because you just saw him going for it. He was, to Liam Lawson, obviously, he left the door open, but still, I think there were many moves that nobody really dared in the race to do. So that is, I think, a great drive with a big opportunity missed for Lando Norris. But what do you think would happen if there would be no red flag? Because the track, it was a river. And Verstappen and Ocon, they were both on used intermediates. And you could see that even behind the safety car, they were barely keeping it on the track. So what do you think would happen, like, if the red flag and Colapinto wouldn't have crashed?
Well, I think the outcome might have... Well, I mean, I think that with, as you say, they had used intermediate tires, so I think somebody would have crashed at some point, probably. Or Max would have pitted for new ones later, and he would have to fight his way back to the top. I think he still probably would have done it. Maybe wouldn't be a double podium for Alpine.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, Franco Colapinto, unfortunately, crashed. I think he also crashed in the qualifying as well. Was it Albon?
Yeah, I think it was both,
or
actually.
Both of them.
Yeah. Albon did not actually start the Grand Prix because he
didn't manage. Yeah, no, I mean, you could see there was a shot of one of the mechanics with his face in his hands after the Colapinto crash.
Yeah.
Because they had just spent hours trying to fix those cars.
Yeah. And their whole budget for the 2025 car, probably, at this point.
I think Williams is probably running on like a budget of 2,000 euros, maybe. They spend everything else. They're gonna come to Bahrain the next year with a car, with a go-kart, because they...
Yeah. At this point, it seems like
how many
point of
crashes
return.
have we... I mean, of course, Logan Sargent, and that was a whole thing, chassis, and Williams, they just haven't been on a lucky streak. I mean, yes, the past few races, Colapinto not finishing lower than 12, that impressive as hell. But in terms of the damages the money. That's the see, their recent performance still hasn't really moved them up in the standings very much.
It seemed promising in the quali with Albon.
Yeah, but
he was almost on the front row of the grid until the crash.
Yeah.
So I was very excited actually, because it seemed like they're getting into a good rhythm, right? And you could even see James Vowles being really not happy when Albon kind of binned it in a very unusual place. I mean, they've discussed potential brake issues, but you could even at this, in this weather, you could even have just cold rear brakes, and you just dab on the brakes, they lock up, and you're basically doing an Albon. So, and but speaking of turn 1 and a little bit bizarre things, we had a first black flag since I don't know how long ago, because Nico Hülkenberg got disqualified from the Grand Prix when there was a red flag because he spun, or I don't think he crashed, but he spun in turn 1, and he kind of got on the edge.
Yeah,
he was kind of hanging off, and he got pushed by the marshals, which is not allowed. And they pushed him back.
I didn't even know that.
And therefore, he later got disqualified. He got a black flag. When there was a race stoppage, there was written that Hülkenberg was disqualified, and then there's a black flag. So that was a weird thing to happen, and very unusual as well, just adding to the huge mix of surprises in Brazil. But you could see the car of Nico Hülkenberg actually being pulled out from the fast lane in the pit lane, that they were pushing it back to his box. So yeah,
imagine you were the marshal.
Yeah, man. I mean, worked for nothing, right? So, well, it was very unfortunate. But it was, again, I mean, it is fairly, I would say, inarguable. It is the rules, and they were clear. At least they were pretty quick to do that. But I thought that is also one of the things that was pretty added to the insanity of the weekend we got.
No Haas with not a great weekend. I mean, overall they've been doing great this season, right? I mean, now they've been jumped by Alpine, but I honestly think that they will be able to get up there. I know we have 3 races left, but I do believe that Magnussen and Hülkenberg are able to outscore Alpine, because they need I think 3 points to get back up there. And honestly, I think, not to say that Alpine don't deserve to finish, high in the order, but they've just turned everything around, and they've been having such a great season. I honestly do think that they deserve the P6. Alpine, yes, they had a great weekend. Yes, the drivers did amazing, but does that warrant, does that warrant to be P6 in the championship after performing so horribly all year? And all the management things, I don't think so. But by the way, this is also a pretty good argument for something that some of the teams have been proposing, which is points all the way down, right? Because the midfield being so close, and a lot of the teams fighting for, or all the way down, or at least to P12, but I think that was rejected, is that, the midfield teams are so close that a couple of points make so much difference, especially on a race like this. They were nowhere, and now the rewards random chance, kind of.
Yeah, but fair.
But Haas, Ollie Berman stepped in Magnussen's place. His 3rd race of the season in across 2 teams, which officially makes him not a rookie, by the way.
Oh,
funnily enough. So when he comes to the grid next year, he can look at all the other rookies and be like, I know what's going on. I'm not a rookie anymore, because he's now raced in 3 Grand Prix. So
Yeah, well,
but also
an
talking about
experienced driver.
rookies.
Yeah,
Talking about rookies, Gabriel Bortoleto got announced.
exactly.
If I'm not butchering
Yeah.
his name.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
For Kick Sauber. What
Yeah.
do you think about that?
Well, I mean, on one hand, I feel sorry for Valtteri Bottas, who I think deserves a seat in F1. However, I'd 100% say that it is a great news because we have a young new talent rising up that is going to be in a seat, in a full-time
What
seat.
would be 7 new drivers?
I don't know. It's quite a few because we have, Behrman, Colapinto, we have Duhan, we then have Antonelli.
Yeah.
And who else do we have? Who did we forget? Yikes. Yeah, well, Lawson technically? Does it count?
Lawson. I mean, he didn't have a drive at the year, and Bortoleto now as well.
Yeah. So that is, I think.
I mean, that is if Colapinto stays.
There's a lot of rumors.
Which now seems highly unlikely with all seats filled. However, this is Formula 1, and these things, especially who has a seat and where, these things aren't always as certain as they might appear to be. Now, I think some people were expecting Colapinto to go into that Sauber seat. I mean, it's great that Bortoleto got it. Another Brazilian driver back on the grid.
Yeah, which is exciting.
And he even got a multi-year contract.
Oh, didn't know that.
As far as I know, yeah.
Well,
so at least 2 years in the Sauber team, which is pretty exciting, because 2026 Audi comes in.
Yeah.
But anyway, Colapinto without a seat, or is he? Because the streets have been talking about the second Red Bull seat again.
The Italian gossip is speaking again.
The Italian gossip, the Italian nonnas are at it again.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's been rumors about the second Red Bull seat for like 2 years now, but nothing ever changes. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how valuable it is, but what are even the options? Perez out, and who's in? Is Colapinto promoted straight into Red Bull? That would be ridiculous.
100% put in Lawson, which is sad for Yuki, but I still think Lawson has the edge considering his prep and his rookie-ness.
Yeah.
But I've heard the same rumor, right? They're saying that they would pay Williams a good amount of money for Colapinto, who would get a seat in the V-Carb, and that would be freed by Liam Lawson because he would replace a certain Sergio Perez, who, by the way, had a a weekend to forget once again, because in the race, I mean, in the sprint, he was fighting Lawson again. It seems like them two are like magnets at this point, but I think that in the race, he actually overtook Lawson, and then he fell back because he made a mistake, and actually Lawson scored points, Tsunoda scored points, Verstappen won, and Sergio Perez has finished P11, which, by the way, is the first time in the duos pairing of Verstappen and Sergio Perez that both in the same race have finished in the same order or on the same place as their starting number in terms of their racing number. So Verstappen, number 1, finished P1, and Sergio Perez, the number 11, finished 11th.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Well, yes, Perez. And I think, or maybe Carlos Sainz could be eyeing the Red Bull seat. Because I don't know how happy he is with that Williams drive. But I mean, if as Red Bull you put Sainz in, then you're just making a laughing stock out of your whole driver academy. Because you have Liam Lawson, you have Yuki Tsunoda. as the logical steps. I mean, of course, Carlos Sainz, very solid performance. The most almost the most recent race winner, along with Max Verstappen,
and used to be a Red Bull junior driver.
Used to be a Red Bull junior
Verstappen's
driver, and I think he deserves he deserves a top seat. But I think that would be pretty ridiculous. I don't know what was going on there in terms of negotiations, because he's known that he's without a job for 2025 since before the season began, right? I mean, so question is, what was going on behind the scenes? All the actors in play. But once again, these rumors often turn out to be untrue, and apparently a different set of rumors saying that Mexican sponsors are being told that Sergio Perez will remain in that Red Bull seat for 2025.
Politics at its best, it seems.
And that is just, as much as we love Sergio Perez, I think the level of job security that he's had despite the competition is very, very solid.
Yeah, and considering Red Bull's nature,
yeah,
it is impressive, to say the least, right? Because we have had a good amount of certain teammates who have not even finished a season, so yeah, he's very secure about his job, but we will see if
I also think that Red Bull is still waiting for the outcome of the constructors, because as of now, it's anyone's guess as to who will be on the top step, right? Because McLaren have a decent lead, but Ferrari are not too far back, like 30-40 points, and Red Bull with Max's win are now right back in the mix as well. So all it takes is a one strong weekend from either Ferrari or Red Bull and a weaker one for McLaren, and we could, I mean, the Drivers' Championship is likely almost over.
Yeah,
as good as done. But the constructors, I think there's still, a lot of opportunity for it to be exciting till the end. And yeah, I mean, last year we saw Mercedes versus Ferrari into the final race. Ended up being decided by 4 points for P2.
Well, maybe we might see the repeat of that.
And also, I recently saw a graphic, of comparing the 2 years. And Red Bull had more than 800 points.
Wow, that's insane.
Really just serves as a terrifying reminder of what the 2023 season was.
Yeah, 21 out of 22 race wins, which I think people forget quite quickly of how lucky we are to have this season and how incredibly is the next season setting out to be. Because we will have, and I'm going to remind everyone again and again, that we're going to have Hamilton and Leclerc in the Ferrari, who could fight for the title. We could have Norris and Piastri both, capable of fighting for the title, it seems. Verstappen, fighting for the title. And, don't forget, Russell and Antonelli, who I think Antonelli could be a bit of a dark horse, because...
Yeah,
you never know. If maybe they change their effing car, then could seem that they could go in the right track. But at this point, it seems like they have a very mixed car balance and car performance.
Unless out of nowhere, it's none of these 4. And
El Plan.
And who is that with the folding chair? It's Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. But I mean, funnily enough, they're in the exact same spot they were in last year with less points. Yes, that's true. But
it looked promising.
They're pouring in a lot of money. They're taking in talent from Red Bull.
Yeah,
and everywhere.
Everything seems to be setting up for 2026 with Newey joining basically next year. I think that 2025 is going to be their year of learning,
Yeah.
of really just gelling the team together. And I think that 2026 is the first time we're going to really see the potential of this
Which is
Troll Imperium.
And it's insane. Alonso is just insane because we're talking about 2026. That's in 2 years. What? He's been here for what? More than 20 years?
Yeah.
And we're like, oh yeah, in 2 years he'll be fighting for the title, as if that's completely normal,
Yeah.
But I don't think he's getting. I don't think he's getting sick of it yet. I mean, we're not sick of seeing him race.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've actually heard, I don't know if it was a podcast or if it was a random video, but he said that he had a multi-year contract with McLaren since 2007 when he was Hamilton's teammate. And I think the contract was supposed to terminate end of 2009. And he said that he thought this was his last contract. And little did we know that he's going to be here even, 401 races, that is insane. And it just shows his hunger for the third world title, because maybe he thought he had it, and he came close certainly a few times, but I don't think he's gonna give up until he gets it. And that could be said the same about Hamilton and his 8th title, who, the more you look at his form in the Mercedes, the more you're thinking a good move going into the Ferrari, because I think that your prediction actually jinxed him, because you predicted that he is gonna end up on the podium.
Our streak of being clairvoyant and knowing exactly what will happen in the races has come to an end, unfortunately, with the Brazilian Grand Prix. And yes, as you said, I cursed Lewis Hamilton. I hexed him.
Yeah.
Fortunately, my dark magic has caused him to get out in Q1. And he struggled all weekend, but
yeah.
I mean, you were a bit closer with your prediction.
Yeah, 100%. I predicted that Sauber would be in the top 10 in at least one competitive session. That meaning either qualifying, specifically Q3, sprint qualifying, SQ3, or the sprint or the race, which, if and only if, had there not been such a delay on the red flag in qualifying, that would have actually happened, because Valtteri Bottas has finished P11 by a few thousandths of a second, and my god, I was fuming, because let me tell you how bold this prediction was, because guess how many times it happened, or let's ask this way, guess on how many occasions and on how many weekends has this happened that Sauber was actually in the top 10 in any competitive session on the whole season?
0.
It happened once, and it happened in China, which was pretty much at the beginning of the year. It actually happened twice, I believe. It was in the sprint and the quali, or in the, sprint, quali. In qualifying, they were 9 and 10, so they had 2 Saubers in the top 10, but it hasn't happened ever since. So
very bold prediction, and
that almost happened, but you know what we say about almost. Yeah. No. So, yeah, as you say, I think Hamilton, for example, as we talked about him a little bit, you could just see whenever there was an onboard on him.
Yeah.
He just, it looked a little bit like when he was driving, how it could look like if he would be driving Senna's car, who he was driving his car between, in the Sunday sessions.
Yeah.
He was actually driving McLaren of Ayrton Senna. I don't know if it was a 1990 McLaren. And it looked like he was fighting it the same way as he was fighting that McLaren. And I bet that if he had the choice, I think he would have chosen that McLaren to race in the Sunday's race. So, yeah.
That would have been extremely funny.
Yeah.
But what is your bold prediction for the next Grand Prix? Because as we know now, we can pick what we don't want to happen, and it won't. Based on this.
It is a difficult prediction to make, but because we know that Vegas is a fairly fresh track. We raced here only last year, and based off what we have seen last year, Ferrari was very quick on the track.
And drain cover cost them the championship, by the way.
Yeah, and it is now called the Carlos Sainz Straight, I believe. Actually, I believe.
Actually?
Yeah, I've actually. I don't know if it's official or not, but I've actually seen a comment that was saying that due to the last year's incident with Carlos Sainz, they have renamed it to the Carlos Sainz Straight.
Highly surprised.
Yeah.
What is your prediction?
Well, my prediction is that we will see, again, 3 different teams on the podium. I really want to make this prediction happen. I think that there is a combination in the track that it could suit different teams. I think that the track could suit, for sure, the Ferrari. I think McLaren generally is very fast. And I think that either Mercedes or Red Bull could really pick up their game, because Mercedes has not been a slow car on the straights, weirdly enough, and that is pretty much rewarded in Las Vegas. And it seems like their car is very different to what it was last year, and their strengths of the car lie very different. So yeah, I have a belief that the craziness of Las Vegas will bring us 3 different teams on the podium, but I'm not saying which, so could it be Alpine again? Who knows? But probably not. What is your prediction?
My bold prediction for the Las Vegas Grand Prix is Lewis Hamilton will finish. No.
Oh my god.
Not again. Not again.
Not again, please.
I don't want to cause you any more mental distress.
Yeah.
No, I will say that something that we haven't seen before. I'll delve deep. I mean, last year we saw that crazy overtake by Leclerc on Perez in the last year. Right?
Ascend.
So I'll be hopeful, and strategically, my prediction will be that we will see a battle for the lead in the last 3 laps. As in the last, or let's say 5. Okay, let's say 5. In the last 5 laps, there will be a battle for the lead, as in a wheel-to-wheel battle.
That actually is a pretty bold prediction.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, after Verstappen won by 20 seconds, wow.
I mean, that hasn't happened in a few races, because this race hasn't happened. Last race in Mexico hasn't happened.
No.
In the USA, hasn't happened. The race before Singapore, nope. So yeah, that is a bold prediction.
I could say I could say podium. That would be a bit cheap. So I'll say
that is very bold, and we will have to see, because I am very excited for Vegas, despite the little break that we have from F1, which is a little bit sad because it's 3 weeks again.
So we're seeing a lot of statistics.
Yes.
A lot of very random statistics about points scored since 3 races ago, 5 races ago, summer break.
Yeah.
And they're all the same, but it's still...
I think that actually, as you say, the statistics, I've seen a statistic that Esteban Ocon or Pierre Gasly have scored the same amount of points since summer break as Sergio Perez. And let that sink in. But I don't want to put any more depression on people and fans of Sergio Perez. So
let's not get it turned into a anti-Sergio Perez
propaganda
machine again.
Let's not.
And let's
we like
our
him.
driver of the weekend. And I mean, I don't think there can be a lot of discussion.
Yeah, again. I think we have to agree.
We have to crown the winner,
Max Verstappen.
Yeah,
It has to be. Like, the performance in the race is something that will never be forgotten. It is one of the great drives, and even though he got helped by the red flag, I don't think it's a fluke. I think it's because he went for it. He overtook Ocon for the lead after the restart. And he hasn't made a mistake in the race. Like, he hasn't been massively off the track. He hasn't really bumped into another car. So, yeah, no discussion for me.
Well, I definitely agree, but what about the midfield or bottom half?
A lot of good performances.
A lot of good performances. I mean, there's
but,
so many of them.
Yeah. Namely, Esteban Ocon. Brilliant
Pierre
performance.
Gasly. Let's not forget.
Exactly.
He started P15.
Yeah. Which, was he P15? Or P...
I think.
Huh. That is interesting.
Yeah. I don't know how he got up there.
Yeah.
But we can put the Alpine team, they deserve it. They drove like maniacs this weekend.
Yeah. They did very well.
But for the rating of the Brazilian Grand Prix in this year of 2024.
I mean, man oh man. It gets, I think, our seal of approval, and it is a 10 out of 10. Because
what else can
I think this is the craziest race we have had in a while. It's even though maybe the end of the race wasn't as, I guess, super climatic in terms of who's going to win in the last lap.
Yeah.
Because Verstappen was setting fastest lap after fastest lap after fastest lap. However, there is no doubt in my mind that this was an insane weekend. I have enjoyed it. For me, it's a 10 out of 10, despite the delays, red flags, whatever. Because it was so unpredictable that I just didn't know what to expect.
I agree. And watching it, I wasn't actively watching F1 back then, but I did see the 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix. I have to say this did remind me of it, at least a little bit. With the rain, the chaos, the insanity, the sheer insanity. So I have to agree that this is a 10 out of 10 race, and let's just hope for even more of these.
Exactly.
And especially in Las Vegas, since that is where we're going next. And last year it was a surprisingly good race, despite a lot of worries from fans that it was, and especially surrounding the organization. But I think everybody forgot that as soon as the lights went out, because it was a banger.
It was. It had a lot of expectation, but it delivered because it had a lot of, let's say, downs before the real competitive session started. But the track proved to be pretty good in terms of chances to overtake. A pretty good balance in terms of the DRS as well, despite the super, super long straight. But yeah, I mean, plenty of opportunities for the drivers, plenty of action for the fans. Reasonable, hopefully this year, the track surface. So. And hopefully no drain covers destroying cars. Could be another controversy. Hopefully not.
I mean, if Ferrari lose positions in the Constructors' Championship due to drain cover in Las Vegas for 2 years in a row, I think I would have to sell all my merch. But anyway, stay tuned for the Las Vegas Grand Prix and for the next episode of our podcast, where we will go into detail about the story of the Las Vegas Grand Prix, coming soon.
Thank you for watching. The Final Straight F1 podcast never stops, and we will see you after the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Take care. Bye.
Bye.